Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Downstage with Bryan Hayden. Pretty blasé week this week, but nothing much to talk about. But I mean, there is a couple of things to talk about this week, and my chair keeps on sliding down because my ass is too heavy. Anyway, but yeah, how is everybody this week? I've been doing good. I finally saw. Oh wait, hang on. Before I talk about my week, Hayden, how about you? I keep forgetting. You're there. So
Yes, I do exist. I am real. I am not a program in your computer. Yeah, but my week was good. Pretty chill. Nothing too much has been going on. Just weekly readings for a scripted series I've been writing, and it's been fun having you, Bryan, finally join us again after so long.
yes, work. So
Yep. But yeah, other than that, it's been a pretty chill week for me. And yeah, I'm just as hyped as ever for this movie
yes, we'll talk about that when the movie comes
when the
around.
time comes.
Yeah, when the time comes. But
But yeah, how was your week, Bryan?
pretty good. I just came from the doctor's today. Found out my foot is perfectly okay. Last week I got an MRI, which actually went smoothly, surprisingly, since I hate MRIs. I'm kind of claustrophobic, so that's kind of interesting. But they kind of did it for foot first, so I didn't have to worry about going into the actual thing. So, but aside from how my foot looked, there was still that injury I had that I suffered over the summer. I suffered an injury over the summer. Nothing really too much to complain about, but it is kind of like I am kind of like accident prone, so I'm just kind of surprised it took me that long to actually get hurt, like on my foot. But anyway, uh, I found out also that I have a little arthritis in my foot as well, but probably because of the wear and tear of walking every single day or just walking around. So it's like, but otherwise, yeah, I'm doing okay. I'm just glad that it wasn't anything really, really serious. It's just a major, not major. It's like a minor, major foot injury. It's like it's only major if I put more pressure or more walk around or anything like that. So it's like, but as of right now, it's more along the lines of a minor that could become a major injury if I'm not careful enough. So yeah.
Hmm.
But I also took a nice little day to go to the movies on Sunday to go see Scream, and I enjoyed it.
Nice.
Here's my mini review. I actually have a mini review that I wrote, but at the same time, I'm just like, it's kind of hard to remember what I wrote because it actually is something that I compacted into a Twitter thread, or not a thread, but a Twitter tweet. There we go. I tweeted tweet.
A tweet, a tweeter.
A tweet. There we go. Something I mounted as a single tweet. So I enjoyed it. It's hard to emulate Wes Craven, but it's been pulled. It was pulled off. It was literally pulled off quite well, especially since Wes Craven's brand of horror is like really hard because he has moments of comedy, but also moments of genuine terror, and it's kind of like pulled off quite as well as Wes. But it's hard to emulate Wes Craven. Uh, and speaking of the humor, I enjoyed the humor for the most part, and it's hard to have a horror movie that has humor going around with it at the same time as being genuine and genuinely terrifying because the movie has like moments of like, damn, this is actually pretty terrifying to watch because it's like, it's like, oh, you expect Ghost because Ghostface is like one of those characters that you watch, and he's essentially like this like very clutchy character because one, he's wearing a cloak, he's wearing a mask, wearing a cloak and stuff like that too. Especially since you're wearing boots, you always see him tripping over all that stuff. And then suddenly it's like, oh, you're seeing a ghost face that is treated more with respect and like danger, and it is kind of like very interesting to watch that.
Hmm.
And it did have one of the funnest climaxes I actually got to experience because it is hard to actually watch a climax in a movie and go, oh man, this is like really, really good, especially in a horror movie because the horror movie, like third act, is usually like where everything gets sorted into it's do or die type of things, and having it set at a familiar location, and then turning that familiar location on its head, it is kind of interesting to watch. But if I only have one gripe, and it's something that Wes Craven would always say, is this: more blood. And even though Scream 5 or Scream had a lot of blood, I'm just like, more blood, come on. So yeah, that was definitely my mini review of it, where it's just like, I enjoyed it, but it definitely felt like one of those things that it's definitely one of those things where it's like it's hard to emulate a particular director, especially if the director has been long past with as such with Russ Craven, But at the same time, the directors, Radio Silence, they did pretty well for the most part, and it's like the same thing. It's like the same problem that Scream 3 had because Kevin Williamson wasn't writing it, because Kevin Williamson has a brand of his own, like, humor, a brand of his own way of writing, like he has like the finger on pulse of what is like good with what today's youth is talking about. And again, it's hard to emulate that, but at the same time, it was a very good movie, so I enjoyed it very overall. So, and of course, Spider-Man Far From Home like knocked it off from its perch, like from being #1. So it was like
Spider-Man No Way Home, I think you mean.
Yeah.
Too many homes.
Yes, but yeah, it's like, and of course they're talking about making a Scream 6, so I kind of welcome that. But every so often, I'm just like, as long as there is a need for horror that isn't like because January is like one of those months, especially for horror, where you just go like, okay, it's January. What kind of shitty horror movies coming out? Mm-hmm. And I don't mean that like hyperbolically. I mean that like literally. Like there was a lot of movies that come out in January, especially if it's a horror movie, that are like really, really shitty to watch. Like I won't like say like, oh, it's shitty to watch. I'm like, it is like maybe subpar type of things. Like the only type of good movies that I've seen that came out in January that was a horror movie were probably like movies that would probably be like this, where it's like it may be a sequel, it may be like a reimagining of something. Like I haven't watched it yet, but I know, but I keep hearing some good things about the Gretel movie that came out like a couple of years ago, actually, like in 2019. Yeah, 2019, 20. Yeah, around that area, and it stars the girl from It. I forgot her name, but it's basically a revamp of Hansel and Gretel, but on Gretel's point of view of how her and her brother survived the thing. And from what it looked like, it was actually a pretty good movie from what I've seen. I haven't watched it yet. Probably I might watch it maybe a little later, but yeah, it's like whenever you're watching a horror or not watching a horror movie, whenever you're watching like the January releases, a lot of the times movies are put there for a reason, because it is a dump month, and January really does have like a track record of getting a year. A lot of the old releases that came out, they're still there, but who could we sacrifice, or who could we put to just to bomb miserably? So and
it's like what can we like throw away essentially?
Yeah, and a perfect example for that is like this Pierce Brosnan movie that was filmed like 8 years ago, called The King's Daughter, and that was literally filmed 8 years ago. It was supposed to come out in like maybe 2016, 2016, like around 2016. Doesn't come out to 2020. It was supposed to come out by then. Still hasn't come out. And then last year it got a new release, which was like around like a couple days ago. Finally comes out, and of course it bombs in the box office because an 8-year-old movie that supposedly had come out, like, and not only that, it's like it's
with no marketing too.
Yeah, with no marketing, and the funniest thing is that people actually bring up the point where the two leads, Benjamin Walker and Kyer, I can't pronounce her last name, but the two leads actually got married who got married because they met on the set, have a family, 3 kids, by the way, and by the time the movie came out, they have a family and 3 kids to essentially during that time. It's like literally doing a movie like 10 years ago and finally getting a release, and in that time you become like uh, a marketing billionaire because you're on the stock market or something like that. It was like, oh, this movie I did 10 years ago, it's finally coming out for some reason. So it's like, like January, it's a dump month for a reason, but at the same time, it's like a lot of this time is like there are some movies that go to die for a reason, and there are some movies that try and survive because, I mean, there are some movies that try and survive because that once the holidays are done, especially after New Year's, it's like a lot of movies that came out after the holidays, they kind of like simmer down unless they're like a very big major studio thing like Spider-Man No Way Home.
Well, even Spider-Man No Way Home was like before New Year's too.
Yeah, that like came out
like,
before Christmas. And
yeah.
But when it's before Christmas and after Christmas, I mean, when it's after Christmas, especially if it's a movie that came out after Christmas, coming after New Year's, and the movies are still surging along, like something that always happens like that is probably like a Star Wars movie or something that's like a major release from a studio.
Yeah, like a big studio kind of thing. Like that's really one of the only few cases where it's like they can really kind of survive.
Yeah, like Lord of the Rings. I remember very vividly Lord of the Rings when it came out in the holidays of 2002, 2003, and 2004. Like those 3 years, like they really dominated the holiday season. And then when The Hobbit came out, I'm not sure if it had the same staying power, but it might have been. I'm not sure. But if it isn't a major Hollywood, major studio release, chances are it's not really there that much. And then by the time January rolls around, usually like the first movie to come out that weekend usually comes in number 1, and that's usually why a lot of these horror movies come out, because one come out in January, they make an easy buck because nothing else is being played. So yeah. But but back to my original thought, I'm just glad that I watched Scream, and I'm just glad that I enjoyed it. So yeah, I can't wait to see. I just can't wait to see if there's another Scream to come. So yeah. So yeah, that was my week overall. I'm sorry, I just had to get a little mini review out of the way. But
all good.
I'm pretty sure if you had gone to see the movies over the weekend or over the week, you probably were like, "Oh man, I saw this movie too," and you probably would have gussed about it too. So yeah.
I mean, yeah. I think we know what I'm going to do on our next episode after I go and see this movie. So I mean,
it's just gonna be an hour of Hayden just talking about the Batman.
Pretty much. I mean, honestly, yeah. That probably might be.
It'd just be a whole episode just called "Okay, time. It's the Batman time. Let's talk about that." Not spoilers, but still spoilers coming through.
Yep. Happy hour with Hayden.
All right, but yeah. Mini review out of the way, but yeah, it was a very blasé week, so to speak. I mean, there was a couple of big things coming out in the entertainment news, stuff that we want to talk about. So the first article, or the first point we will be talking about is that Cardi B actually helped. So a little context for you. Back a couple of weeks ago, there was a horrible fire in a Bronx apartment. A dozen people, I believe, died, or they're still counting how many people are still affected by it, aside from statistics and whatnot. But a lot of the cause, it definitely felt like oh, excuse me, I have a very bad cough today.
It's okay.
That was probably the reason why I was waiting to finish my thought, but then I really like, yeah, okay, I'm looking at the official thing. There was 17 people, unfortunately, who passed away, and 44 people who were essentially injured. But and all because of a freak space heater, space heater problem. But Cardi B, who was a native to the Bronx, actually paid funeral expenses to the 17 people who, unfortunately lost their lives, and you know, and her she was quoted as saying, "I can't believe to imagine the pain and anguish that the families of victims are experiencing, and I hope not to be." And I hope that not worrying about the costs associated with burying their loved ones would help as they move forward and heal. And that's actually, a very good thing to hear because, going to a funeral and paying for a funeral, that it'll, I, you know,
Yeah, it is expensive.
yeah, especially in New York City. I mean, well, New York in general, but I'm not sure how it is in Georgia or everything else, but.
I mean, funerals are always gonna be expensive. Like just the freaking casket alone, it's like, why do you need to spend why do caskets have to be this expensive? You're literally just putting it in the ground. Does it matter how if it looks fancy or not? Like, its purpose is literally just to be in the ground.
Yeah, and to hear someone who is essentially a Bronx native and someone who isn't known to be. I mean, I'm not sure if Cardi B is known to be like a humanitarian. I'm pretty sure she's he has humanitarian, stuff to do in the past. But something like this, to hear that, and especially with a very recent tragic news that's been happening in New York City, which anybody who lives in New York City or is in New York, you're kind of been hearing about how crazy. January has been for New York in general. So hearing this, hearing this news about how a very famous music icon is helping pay not only funeral expenses but also just supporting the community in general. That's actually great to hear because I giving back to the neighborhood. That's always been something that has occurred in the past, but at the same time. I rarely hear about that happening in general because unless it's because last time I heard giving back into the neighborhood was probably last year when a couple of football players who lived in Jersey were helping out with people who were affected by the coronavirus and unable to get groceries and stuff like that too. So yeah, and they were doing giving back too, and it's and especially with New York in general, New York has been rough the past couple of years, especially going into the pandemic. So stuff like this, where it's a space heater having malfunctioning and then essentially costing the lives of 70 people, it is it is a tragedy to read, and then.
And it's why would they need a space heater in the first place? Well, probably because they were getting, the landlord was probably cheaping out and actually making sure there was adequate heating.
Oh yeah, apparently from what I've heard, the apartment building had problems with the heating as well. So it's if you live in an apartment building, 9 times out of 10, the apartment building might have heat for the summer for the winter going forward, or they might have problems with the heat anyway because a lot of the apartments in a building might not be fully insulated because and that's another problem is that a lot of these buildings, they're over 50, 60 years old, but they're not properly insulated yet or anything else really. So yeah, it definitely is it definitely is a bigger problem because, not only is it focusing on the tragedy, but also you're also focusing on the fact that this building probably has been, uh, a lot, a lot of the problems being, living in an apartment building as well as having those problematic things of there are families who had their heat shut off or something like that, and they had to use the space heater and in order to like survive for at least a couple of weeks because of the stupid cold and stuff like that too. And yeah, and of course, it being New York City is like, oh, it's New York City. It's it's like literally New York City, and people are like, oh, it's New York City, and it's always cold. There's always gonna be like that. It's definitely one of those things where it's just like it's hard to describe because I live in I live in my home that has good heating and whatnot, but I've been to places that were in apartments and that were generally cold because the moment you walk into a hallway, it is like freezing sometimes. And I'm pretty sure you had the same experience, Hayden, when you lived in New York, having the same problems and stuff like that too.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, it's just a thing in New York, essentially.
Yeah, so but yeah, good on Cardi B to essentially help out not only a Bronx neighborhood in need, but also just helping out in general because of as we pointed out before, funerals are pretty expensive or just expensive in general.
Yeah. Especially in these times too, where it's like, they already have to worry about like because especially because in New York, because most of us who are there, it's like you're already like struggling just to like be able to get enough to pay the rent, pay the utilities, just to make ends, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So it's just like
and trying to make ends meet, especially in New York City, is like even more. Oh, excuse me.
Oh, good.
It's definitely more. It's definitely more difficult to figure out how. Yeah, it's definitely more difficult to make ends meet, especially if you're living in New York City and you have to be living in a very, horrible apartment. Just a horrible apartment. So.
And then spend most of what you make just to pay rent for that horrible apartment.
Yeah. So especially especially if the apartment might not have a radiator somewhere. So yeah. But
it's like if you want people there to work, give them a place where they can actually afford to live in the first place.
Yeah, and afford. Yeah, go ahead.
No, it's just general frustration with New York. It's not. Yeah.
Yeah, affordable housing is just like a little difficult to be in New York City. It's like, every so often it's like, like I wonder how much rent, like, what would be like the cheapest like rent here to live in New York City, especially if it's in Brooklyn or Manhattan. And the cheapest I could actually find is like maybe $1,200 a month, or something even close to $1,500 a month, and that's just like bare minimum on some of these sites. And then again, it's like, you go there, and especially if you're an actor, it's like, okay, as an actor, like, will this help me? Will this stay make me cool and all that stuff? So it's like it definitely feels like a lot of these places, especially if it's like affordable housing or something like that, it's definitely like one of the problems of just New York in general. Anyway, to jump from that, good on Cardi B for doing that. But unfortunately, we talk to Broadway now, and we go straight into Broadway now. So, a Broadway actor who plays Harry Potter and who plays the lead role of Harry Potter and the Cursed Child, has been fired from the production because of a misconduct complaint. Apparently, it was made back in November, made by the woman who plays his wife who plays his wife on the Broadway show. It was Broadway show. So, and apparently, the production company or the people who do the thing, they made a third-party independent investigation, and then afterwards they decided to essentially, once everything was inquired and stuff like that too, they decided to terminate him. but from what I've been reading, they have yet to been actually making sure what they have been. What's the term? They've been keeping her privacy on to why the complaint was reached.
Mhm.
So misconduct complaint can mean like essentially anything in terms of like literally anything. So and to have it be the lead of your play, but also coming from the lead actor's wife, the character's wife. So that must mean that is like legitimately bad from a like me a producer standpoint, because that just means uh, you have the actor, right? You have two actors. Do you think they get along? And then suddenly, like, one of the actors comes forward about a complaint that about the other actor, and as the producers, especially on a big production like this, Harry Potter. How do you go forward? Because the main the problem is this is essentially the main actor of the play. He's playing Harry Potter, so
yeah.
how do you fix that? Especially going forward. It's like, and also the person that complained, that did the complaint is also playing his wife, so they're basically sharing the stage for like probably 8 times a week or so, and
Yeah, like they spend a lot. They essentially spend a lot of time together on stage, and probably had to spend a lot of time like working on these characters and like.
Yeah, so it's like that's definitely one of those type of like things you that is just troubling to read, because one, yeah, that's always like something troubling to read, because you definitely uh you're definitely not. I'm definitely not used to hearing that. Like, okay, I'm definitely used to hearing something happening on Broadway about some actor being fired, but nothing like this from a production like this, because Harry Potter and the Cursed Child. Like, I rarely hear anything bad coming out of it, aside from like a couple of years ago when it was on Broadway, it was literally a 2-day performance, whereas it's like you had to go see it. You had to literally see it one day and then the following day, because it was like a long play. It was literally like maybe 6 hours in general. So they literally had to when it came back on Broadway when it came back on Broadway, they literally cut down everything into like a whole like a 2 hour and 15 minute 2 hour, 15 minute, 30 minute play. So they condense everything into like essentially that time frame. So they don't have to do essentially two.
So basically, not doing an Angels in America, essentially.
Yeah, and again, Angels in America is a totally different play, but and the same thing.
But yeah, there's not a lot of plays that can actually get away with like doing something like that. Like being like so long and having to split it up into multiple like days or showings.
Like the only other thing I remember was probably The Inheritance, where it was literally the same thing, where it's like, I think it's like a 6 hour play in general, or maybe 3 hours per show or something like that, and they did everything in one day. So like, you see part one in the early afternoon, and then part two early, later that night, and then they do the same thing, part one the next day, part two the next day, part one. It's like, so condensing a very long play is like, it's good, but again, reading here and then reading about how mysterious that misconduct is, that just gives off a sensation of what kind of harassment did this guy do, especially since they're both on stage like probably the majority of the time, especially where the character is the main character. So yeah.
I've definitely got some thoughts on this for sure. It's like, I think they did the right thing bringing in a third party instead of trying to just like settle it in house, because that can be tricky. And there are actors who all are gonna be actors who work with each other who can't stand each other, but they make it work because they want to do the show, they want to get paid, and then they got those contracts, and contracts are always a difficult thing to try and negotiate out of.
Oh yeah.
So it must also show that like, and also the fact like how they handle this too. I think it also shows that like whatever's going on or whatever happened, it must have been going on for a long time.
Oh yeah,
because you don't just because they did it in November, and then like, okay, now we're going to essentially have a third party come and investigate this. Like, we're not going to try to like sell this ourselves. Like, I feel like they probably would do if it was like if there was just something that just happened out of the blue.
Yeah.
So it seems like this is like, it feels like it had to be something that was building, and like the actress is probably just trying to like keep it secret just to like get through it and just get to the end, and then hopefully it'd be over by then. But it's like clearly something happened. There was some boiling point.
Yeah.
And I think it's I think what they did is for the best.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure we could both speak from experience if we've probably been in productions or something like that where you don't want to be with an actor or actress in general because of just like maybe a general animosity or just a general like this person just doesn't get it and stuff like that too. And maybe and of course I've had my problems, especially in college, where it's like college is like almost like it's a different thing. But in college, it's like you talk to someone in the main office or department, whatever that thing. They may talk to the student that's been harassing you or something like that, but they won't go any further. But when it's a third party that does that, usually means it was probably a bigger issue than they when. Yeah, that was my takeaway. Is that reading this article, it definitely felt like it was a bigger issue going forward than just being it's probably just like a misconduct thing, because hearing misconduct actors recently, especially being fired and stuff like that too, that's nothing new. That's been happening for the past like say several years or so.
Yeah.
But again, with your actor being the main lead on the show, that's even more of a red flag going forward. Especially when the third party is brought into, and then the investigation is like concluded and stuff like that too. It's like literally going into a play, like maybe a play that has been going on for like maybe you go into a play as an actor, right? And then you're essentially there for like maybe a year or so, and then you find out that when the main like your character's like best friend is fired from the play over for some misconduct stuff because of another because they were harassing someone in the house, and or they were doing something in the house that was being generally frowned upon. And then it's like when you're sharing the stage with someone who you don't really know much about outside of just being on stage with them or being around with them, just like especially as an actor, the actor's private life is really just that. It's just their private life, but sometimes their private life does leak into their work, and it's much more difficult to work with that than say someone who is like keeping that private life private. I'm very used to keeping my private life private because one, that's just the way it is. It's like that, and also I'm very socially awkward, so just being around other actors is like it's good, but it's like how do I speak to other actors? I'm like, okay, just don't be awkward, and I'm like, oh, okay, don't be awkward.
It's like, how do I human?
Yes, exactly. Especially being around other actors, and of course, your awkwardness or someone's awkwardness or someone's social. Someone's sociology with someone else might mistake it as being another reason.
Like another one of those another creepy weirdo actor types or something like that.
Yes, essentially. And my freaking sheet is like a little hard to keep them going out today. But and again, as I'm speaking, you just see me slowly going down. So I'm gonna try and not worry about it anymore. But yeah,
it's all going downhill, just like that Harry Potter actor.
Yes, but yeah, but to going back to that point, you're with someone on a production that you don't know much about their personal life, something like that, and then finding out that they were fired or a place because of just different different aspects. Again, I've had that happen in the past too, where I was working on a project. What was it like a uh-oh. Oh, am I still? Okay, good. I thought I lost my feed there. I was working on a project several years ago, actually. The lead, not the lead actor, one of the supporting actors who I met before because they were in uh, I think, again, another supporting actor from the thing. So they were kind of like hiring in-house of other actors that they know of, because of just general ideas, stuff like that too. And I was only there for like maybe a couple of days because of it being dress rehearsal, and then being and then being the performance for those couple of days. Because it was a play. I'm only there for a couple of days because of they needed people to be both stage hands but also extras because why not?
Yeah.
And of course, I haven't met that actor for a while, and they were, of course, being their own like off in their own little world, and then they find out like later in the day that actor was gone because he was pretty much he was too much of an asshole to conform into the type of role he was doing, and he didn't want to like he basically didn't want to do it, and then and again, I guess as revenge to being fired, he came on opening night to look at the play, and the actor who was replacing him, they were like on stage doing their lines and whatnot, and they could actually see the other actor just watching him like doing a thing, just like kind of like staring back at him and stuff like that too. And of course, the other actor who replaced him is a mighty great actor and stuff like that too. But they definitely felt a lot more comfortable with that role than the other actor who was basically being an asshole just regardless. And of course, I knew he was an asshole beforehand, but I didn't know he was like that type of asshole where he just was like, the director was like, we just gotta get this, guy out. So yeah, it definitely like acting, especially if you're on stage, comes in a mixed bag because one, you don't unless you're like a very close knit group of actors, especially with your stage, and your stage crew. You don't know a lot of your stuff about your fellow actors, but then there is stuff like that, and which leads to stuff like this, where it's just like, uh, you know, lead actor of this play gets casted out because of misconduct and stuff like that too. And again, it's like you don't usually hear the lead actor of a play being fired from the by the the production, because lead actors don't usually get fired unless unless something really bad happened.
Exactly.
So yeah, Hayden, what was your thoughts too? Because I know, unless you already said your thoughts.
I mean, yeah, I basically already kind of said my thoughts about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like, yeah, it's good thing that it's like, yeah, so it seems like this dude has like a history, it seems like, because yeah, you don't just fire a lead because of because the fact that there's no specifics as well, that there's still so much information that you can tell is being like, shielded.
Yeah.
And that's very likely for a good reason too. Because
Yeah.
normally with stuff like this, like information just starts kind of pouring out almost immediately.
Yeah.
But it's the fact that it is very much
Like
it seems like clearly, yeah, it's like clearly like a big deal. Like something really big had to have happened for them to actually be like, okay, yeah, we're firing this lead actor, we're terminating that contract with him, and then they're probably going to have to like go with whoever the understudy is now to
Yeah.
replace that role for probably the remainder of the run of this show.
And not only that, they also probably had to think about his contract as well. It's like if you fire someone from a contract, you still have to probably pay him out with whatever money they have left, and
Well, it probably depends on like what the clauses of the contract are, though.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because I feel like if like it's probably going to be something where it's like if you do something like that could possibly be arguably criminal, like whatever this misconduct thing could be,
Yeah.
then that could just simply put that. Then depending on how they wrote the contract, that could also give them an advantage to be like, okay, we don't have to pay you now because of what you did, so we can
Yeah.
just fire you, tear up that contract, and then it'll be like you were never here.
Oh yeah, essentially.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, all
again,
in all, it seems like it's for the best.
yeah. So yeah, the thing with that, it was just like very weird to read, but at the same time, it's like again, major actor of a major play, especially being a Broadway play, and the other type of misconduct you will read would probably be in like other like like maybe supporting actors or just like actors that were probably like maybe like yeah like literally supporting actors or
or like minor actors who maybe show up
yeah
for 1 or 2 scenes with a couple lines, stuff like that.
yeah and then or maybe an actor being replaced by another actor who is essentially uh yeah essentially like that or you know an actor being replaced by another actor or an actress being replaced by another actress who basically has some you know controversy with them because again a lot of other times Broadway is a business and they are probably as a business is to keep people going to see the show with the type of stuff that's like what is working for them. So yeah. And speaking of businesses, which is a good segue into your story, which is essentially Xbox buying Activision Blizzard, or is it Blizzard Activision, whatever the hell it's called.
Activision Blizzard.
Activision Blizzard, okay. So Hayden, you're a gamer, and you know I'm slowly becoming back with gaming. You know, I'm in the process of playing the Borderlands, the pre-sequel, which has been fun.
Yeah.
But I like in terms of Activision, I only knew him. I only know him because of you know Call of Duty, but I haven't really played Call of Duty since Modern Warfare, like the remake of Modern Warfare or the reboot of Modern Warfare, whatever they call it. But essentially, Modern Warfare 2019. That was like the last Call of Duty I played, and the last one I really gave two shits about. Because I like the idea of Cold War. I like the idea of World War II again, but Call of Duty hasn't really, you know, gotten me back for a while, and they're doing a major focus on like battle royale modes and like
their focus has shifted so far away from stories, and it's so much more about the multiplayer aspect.
Yeah.
So much so that even one of the Black Ops games, I think it was a Black Ops 4, where it had no story campaign, it was just multiplayer only.
But yeah, explain in good detail to why, like, why you thought Activision Blizzard was being brought by Xbox, which already has like a lot of like they already have Bethesda, so they already have like probably like Doom, Fallout, Wolfenstein, Skyrim, any other things. Like they have a lot more. Like Bethesda, they have like a lot of stuff now. But yeah, in your experience, or in your experience, and your like, in your words, like, why do you think Activision was brought by Xbox?
Well, first we have to kind of remember all the recent controversy within the past like so many months that has come about from Activision Blizzard. Like, just to kind of like really summarize that quickly, it's just like all this sexual misconduct essentially, and like and just like harassment of their women employees at Activision Blizzard, like so much so that it was basically like the men who were there treated it like it's their own little fraternity essentially. And the fact that it's like that so much information to come out about Activision Blizzard, it's like, why would Xbox actually want to buy them? And honestly, I think the reason actually is probably a little more simpler than we think it is. I think it is actually because Activision Blizzard knows that with all that controversy around them, that's going to be a problem for them. So what's the best thing to do? Put something else in the headlines. And then what's the best option? Well, they probably negotiated a deal with Xbox to like have them buy them. Because then it's like the news starts turning more towards that. Like it's their way, I feel like, of trying to like, cover for the fact that it's like, trying to change the headlines so people try like trying to make people forget about all of the allegations that are against them. And also too because like um it's definitely not like, gonna help them if those allegations are the only thing that's gonna be in people's minds now. So it's like it's their way of trying to like, derail like that information, try and keep everyone focused on something else. Because yeah, it's not a good look, but at the same time, Xbox doesn't have to worry about not like, if it's a good look or not, because they get a lot of content out of it and they can do a lot with it. So so honestly, it's like this is a win for Xbox, and I feel like it's also going to be a win for Activision Blizzard in the long run.
Sorry about that. I literally used the bathroom as you were talking, so you
All
basically
good.
you basically had your tandem thing. But yeah,
Yeah. You missed the fun part about the dragons.
Dragon's Day. But yeah.
Also, I think my cat just dropped onto the desk.
Aw.
Let's see if I can.
There's our mascot.
Yep. And it's hard to see with the virtual background.
I know.
Yeah.
Cat just wants to be in frame.
Yeah, it would help if she is in frame. Even when
But
she's in frame, it's like, nah.
yeah.
But anyway, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, from a casual standpoint or casual fan standpoint, I see this as a win for them as well. But at the same time, that there is still like the problem of Blizzard's problematic past. There we go.
Mm-hmm.
Blizzard's problematic past still really, reeling its ugly head.
Mm-hmm.
And
And even if like that pass comes back to haunt or bite Activision Blizzard in the ass, they're going to be fine now because because of Xbox.
yeah, and Xbox is literally paying over like essentially $68 billion just to buy this freaking company.
Which
I'm
that
sorry.
is a lot of money for.
Yeah, I mean,
Like, oh my gosh.
like one, it's like you're practically paying close to $70 billion just to buy one company, just to buy other like I know we were
And
joking
also
about.
they're not and also the Xbox has made it clear also that like they're not going to turn any of the like stuff that any of the titles they've gotten from Activision Blizzard now into exclusives. Like so they're still going to share it equally with PlayStation.
Yeah, at least that's good because I'm pretty sure people who wanted to still play the new Call of Duty is like, oh, it's like I'm gonna have to buy an Xbox now or Xbox Series X or whatever it's called.
Exactly.
And
And then also there's further proof that the console war is BS.
yeah, I see it as a win too, but at the same time, it's definitely one of those things where it's just like, as a casual fan, and I haven't had the Xbox for over probably close to 2015, 16, around there.
Mm-hmm.
Like 2015, 2016. Like I really hadn't worked with the Xbox in a while because, by then I was trading it with the PlayStation 4 and
Mm-hmm.
I've been happy with the PlayStation 4. And
Yeah.
now I own the PlayStation 5, so yeah, it's definitely I'm more of a PlayStation kid now than anything else.
Yeah.
Which is hilarious because I grew up with the Super Nintendo, NES, stuff like that too. I
Mm-hmm.
didn't get the GameCube or the N64, but it was mostly just the Super Nintendo and just the Nintendo regardless. But then as I grew up as a teenager, I went into the PlayStation 2, Xbox 360, and then PlayStation 4, and then PlayStation 5. And now I'm sort of like trying to do PC gamer stuff, but
Mm-hmm.
I still need to figure out how to like PC game correctly.
Yeah, like that's like I'm not the biggest fan of the PC gaming because it's like for me it's just I find it difficult to like do the like the way the keyboard setups are for it. I'm just finding it weird. Like it just feels easier holding a controller in my hand to do that.
Like yeah, that's literally what I do too. Is like if I'm playing a PC game, I'm like literally just using control.
Yeah,
And
it's so much easier. But yeah, it's like I've never had an Xbox either. Like I've always essentially had like a PlayStation essentially. Like PS2, a PS3, a PS4. So that's always kind of been how I've done it. But yeah, it's like it's good for Xbox. they're gonna get a win from it, and they're gonna make money from it, and they're gonna make money from all those titles they have now too. So it's a win for them. And Activision Blizzard is gonna use this as good cover, I feel like. So
Yeah,
it ends up being a win for them as well.
yeah, especially since for the past like what year and a half because of the the Blizzard stuff as well. So yeah, but but as a PlayStation fan, I can't really count them out too because even if Xbox does surely do that, PlayStation still has Spider-Man. It has the Wolverine game coming out. It has God of War. It has
Ragnarok.
God of War Ragnarok. It has Uncharted still. If Naughty Dog decides to do another game, The Last of Us Part 3, which probably won't happen. Yeah, I'm not sure. It's like I still haven't finished. I
mean, they're gonna make. I mean, let's be honest. Like because of Neil Druckmann's ego, it's gonna probably happen, and then it's probably gonna be even more.
I still have yet to. You know what? And this is actually a good point. I still have yet to finish The Last of Us Part 2 because it's not because it's a hard game. It's a hard game to finish because it's very depressing.
Yeah, the whole tone is depressing. Like the first game could be depressing, but they knew how to balance it better. But also because Neil himself is sorry, my cat is like messing with a lot of stuff around here, so I'm gonna try it. Okay.
No worries.
So it's also Neil Druckmann himself is very much a dark kind of person with his storytelling. Like when he was working on Uncharted 2, he wanted to kill off Elena in the second game.
Really?
Yeah. But then I don't remember who it was. I think it was whoever was the one of the people who was more in charge of Naughty Dog at the time was like, no, Neil, we gotta pull back from that. Neil, we can't do that.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing because imagine now like Uncharted 3 and 4 without Elena. It'd be very different series.
But
it's also because that is just like this game in particular, like even in the first game, like Neil wasn't really doing that one alone because he had the same people kind of pulled him back for Uncharted 2. Those same people were there for the first Last of Us to kind of help reel back some of his crazy dark ideas. But then with this second game, he was totally fully in control and he let his depressing darkness really shine, ironically, in that game. And it because there's barely any moments of levity. It's all just dark for seemingly the sake of dark, to be honest. Like it's too much darkness, and it's like I like dark stuff, but it's like my God, dude. Like there's one scene where even I'm watching, and I'm like, oh God, no, please, oh no, God, this even I couldn't stomach it because of just what's going on in it.
Yeah.
Sorry, hold on, let me try and move my cat.
In terms of the game, the last time I focused on that game was that I'm not sure if this is a really big spoiler, but Abby has gone back to the aquarium. She's with the two kids or two teenagers. I forgot.
They refer to them as kids pretty much, but one is definitely more teenagerish, and the other one is more like a kid.
Yeah, teenager kid or one adult or something like that. She's basically with those two kids or two young people. There we go. The youngsters. There we go.
Yeah. The youngsters.
Yeah, she's with these two youngsters, and they have to go back to the island of, and again,
persecution.
Huh?
Yeah, it's like the island of persecution or something like that.
And I think the reason why I haven't really gone back is because that storyline by itself is already too dark because it's. And this is just my gripe, is because the Sapphirites or whatever they're called,
the Seraphites.
The Seraphites are a heavy subject to do in a freaking game, just about surviving in a zombie-like apocalypse. And
also why would you have the character who joins Abby, who is essentially transgender, wanting to escape the Seraphites? So because they refer to it as a she when he wants to be a he. Why wouldn't you actually have that character run into Dina and Ellie? Because we also see them in a flashback scene having to struggle with people in Jacksonville being bigoted.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it make it's like Neil? Wouldn't it make more sense to pair these two characters together? Because then they can actually help each other grow as people. No, you don't actually care about that, Neil. Gee, really, it really shows.
I mean, it also probably
also because Abby's character really is lacking of a character, to be honest.
Yeah, compared to the first game, and I mean, and
because every character in that first game actually felt like a person who had history, who had experiences. But this person, even when we see her experiences, she still just feels like a flat, stale character a lot of the time.
a blank slate, you mean?
Yeah, like it's basically just Neil being like, "This is me. I am Abby. I will kill Joel." Spoilers, but not really, because let's be honest, we all know that.
Yes, and and I think that was another thing about the game too. Is like, I mean, it focuses a lot on Abby, which I don't mind because I do like the idea of playing a game with multiple protagonists.
Mhm.
But even with Ellie, the Ellie comes off a little too unlikable. You know, it's like I understand her path of rage and stuff like that too, and
Mhm.
her path of vengeance is the same thing with Abby. But
But then the
it's
biggest
just
difference is like Ellie is still fresh. Like she's
yeah,
only, going into it a couple weeks. Abby has literally had this for 4 years. Like she has not skipped a beat with it. And she is, if anything, she has maintained that aggression even further.
yeah,
So it's also like, why is one better than the other? Why is it okay for one to get revenge, but the other isn't? If the idea is revenge is bad, because that's
yeah,
the entire thing. It constantly is trying to frame Abby as the good person, the one we should root for. It's like there are two great things. One thing I've noticed, and this is kind of here's a me quote. I don't know if other people said it, but it's for right now it's a me quote, unless otherwise.
yeah,
It's a game where it tries to take one of the most human characters and dehumanizes them. It then takes one of the character who starts out very dehumanized and tries to humanize them and fails, and really fails at that last one.
yeah, and
And then also it's a game of right and wrong made by people who always think they are right instead of actually trying to have the nuance. And that second quote is from, I remember seeing in a comment thread from like a Japanese player who played the game. So I don't have the specific names on that one, but that's yeah. But it's a very accurate statement though about the game, because you can see that like through the writing, through the storytelling, where it's like, here's what we think is right and wrong, but we always think we're right, because that's very much like how it is. It very much shows through Abby's portion of the game.
yeah. And I think what's also interesting is like with these studios now being bought by bigger studios, like with Xbox now owning Activision, Blizzard, that sort of thing too. Would it like it gets me thinking? Is like, would there be more of a well, not restriction, but more of a control over the substance of what they're like putting out? Because
Hmm.
I don't know if PlayStation has like a uh like like a putting their foot down with their sort of thing, where it's like, okay, you know,
Hmm.
like we're gonna put your foot down in terms of, you know, that's, you know, with that thing, you know, compared to say Xbox, you know, Microsoft. You know, Microsoft is a huge company. You know, it's like
Hmm.
if they're releasing a new Call of Duty game, or they're, you know, producing a new Call of Duty game, you know, would they put, you know, some foot down of, okay, you know, we play tested this. This is a little too dark. You know, upbeat a little bit, something like that. You know,
Hmm.
compared to like maybe PlayStation, where it's like a lot of their games, especially if they're single player thing, you know, it can be dark and depressing. You know, like a good thing, you know, like a great and something that we keep on going back to is like Red Dead. You know, Red
Hmm.
Dead Redemption 2. That's a rough game to play because, you know, it's in the twilight years of a cowboy. Well, it's for like both. It's
Hmm.
still set in
Yeah,
twilight. Yeah,
yeah. They're constantly talking about how it's like, the time of the outlaws is essentially coming to an end, essentially.
the same thing with like Red Dead Redemption, where it's like the outlaws have ended, you know, and it's just John Marston just trying to like survive with his family or stuff like that too, just being essentially a hired gun for the government, or
Hmm.
and then going from there. But
But really, it's like, but it's
but
like the biggest reason. Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, but to finish that thought, you know, one of the endings for the game does give that uplifting thing where, I mean, in terms of Red Dead too, one of the endings actually does give it like an uplifting thing where it's just like, their lives just might be very shitty, but if you play it in a certain way, like if you play it more, morally good,
Mm-hmm.
you get like a goodish ending where it's like you do root for these people to actually come out for the better.
Yeah.
And because of that, they have these different endings where it actually does tell you where a lot of these people are, where these people are in the end, like in the epilogue.
Yeah, the epilogue, yeah.
But yeah, go your thought.
Yeah, like really that's kind of the biggest difference between Red Dead Redemption 2 and Last of Us Part 2. Because Red Dead Redemption 2 knows how to just show the humanity in their characters. Because really that's like one of the biggest things that it's like if you're gonna do a zombie game and you got human characters, give us some semblance of humanity.
Yeah,
Like and don't just try to simply do moral equivalencies in literally an end of the world time where it's like who the hell cares? We're literally all trying to not get killed by zombies right now. Can we just focus on this bigger picture problem at hand right now?
yeah,
And like with Red Dead Redemption 2, it's like the problems they deal with, like the moral equivalency thing works better for that one. Because one, no zombie apocalypse, and two, it's so built into the framework already to begin with that there is this sort of moral dilemma. Like we're already coming into that game like, oh, okay, like this robbery failed bad, like it all went pretty bad. So we start off as someone who's kind of like already, this hardened outlaw. But then as time goes on, you see him like
like make
change and
choices.
grow and adapt and kind of realize that maybe we did things wrong, that maybe we didn't like we shouldn't have been doing the things we were doing. Like kind of almost coming like he's coming to terms with who he is, but also like wanting to find a way to just make something good come out of all of this by
Yeah,
helping John and his family escape this life.
yeah, and he's also active, and that's one of the reasons why I love Arthur because like when I heard that Arthur was going to be the protector, I was like, how do you go from John Marston, who's an excellent rock star character by himself,
Mm-hmm.
to this guy that you don't know anything about because it's like, oh, this is just like part of the gang that you don't know of. Like, I mean, and
Mm-hmm.
I understand that Red Dead is a prequel too, so it's like all these characters that they may or may not survive, and then
Mm-hmm.
it goes straight into Red Dead Redemption. So it's like it's like one of those type of things, but it's definitely. But I was just amazed to go. I was like, man, Arthur is just so relatable because he's just like trying to do his best, and he's just trying to make sure that a lot of these people are surviving, thriving.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Like he's just a man trying to protect his family.
yeah,
That's really the core of who he is in a nutshell.
yeah,
And
and
if he has to do bad things to do it, so be it, as long as he achieves his overall goal and objective of just making sure his family is protected.
yeah, uh, yeah, that's a good way to end the whole thing though. But the whole the thought process of Red Dead and why it's still great. But anyway, but it's basically to do the compare and contrast between essentially two dark games, where it's
Mhm.
like The Last of Us 2 with I may or may not be able to finish it maybe before uh, before my birthday, but hopefully. I may actually just go back into the game just in a fresh mind, just to play it regularly and
Mhm.
just as a regular game. But
Yeah.
anyway, uh, but back to the thought process, it does bring to mind is like, will there be major studios or producing studios that will put the stomp down in case
Mhm.
if Xbox is releasing a game that like they may be more mindful of the type of game that they want to be produced, and they might put a stamp on some of the things because a great segue into ending this is that Disney is doing a new Star Wars game done by Quantic Dream, and a lot of people are on Twitter, especially on Twitter, are are essentially trying to do a hashtag of essentially boycott Star Wars Blackout because it's done by Quantic Dream, and I forgot who does Quantic Dream, like in terms of the main like creative director or anything else, but
Mhm.
over the past like say few years, a lot of it has like come to light where he has done a very toxic work environment. Like,
Mhm.
like I remember, what was that Willem Dafoe Elliot Page game that they did? I forgot what it was called.
Beyond Two Souls.
Yeah, Beyond Two Souls, and how basically, David Cage, that's who it was. Yeah, David Cage for the past several years have been getting like a very toxic work environment type of thing, and a lot of everyone has been telling her how basically like he's been like very horrible to work with, or just like a horrible work environment. But I remember,
and that same thing you were saying with that like shower thing with Beyond Two Souls. It's essentially that same thing that actually kind of happens in like Heavy Rain, where he plays like one of the like there's 4 characters. One of them is Madison Page, a woman, and literally the first level you play with her, she wakes up and basically just like a t-shirt, like her underwear, and you can literally just take the character into like a shower. But that's the only character you can do that with.
Yeah, and I mean there is also who's it called, the main father as well. The main father as well, like he takes a shower as well, but it's like you don't see him like.
Yeah, like they don't really show him the same way they show the woman character.
Yeah, the woman character is like suddenly naked. I'm like, wait,
yeah,
what the fuck? This is like, it's like I understand to do the same thing about with Joss Whedon last week, Oh, and like the thing with Heavy Rain, and I love Heavy Rain as a game because Heavy Rain is like one of my favorite games to play over the past like decade or so.
Yeah, same. That was a fun game.
And her storyline, like she is like really and this is actually something that is actually brought on like on TV tropes, is that her like scenes are often portrayed as being assaulted by sexually violent aggressors. And
like that's literally, that's pretty much every encounter she has with men, aside from like the father of the missing kid, essentially. Like literally it's the skeevy motel dude, and like they literally show a shot of when she in the cinematic of making it seem like he's checking out her ass as she's walking out of the motel front desk area.
Yeah.
There's that doctor dude who tries to drug her, and then there's that club owner guy. And it's also the fact that you don't pick the right option to advance the story. She's literally just standing there, like, breasts fully exposed, and then just in her underwear.
Yeah.
Like, dude, but what?
But yeah, it definitely feels like David Cage does like have this very warped way of like doing his own game, and I do wonder, like with Star Wars Blackout, and again with the same thing with future releases of Xbox related things, like will these developers get like a stomp by the main publishers, like a PlayStation, Microsoft, or even Disney could be like, no, we don't want this, so like tone it up a little bit or something, tone it down or something like that. Again, I'm not sure if PlayStation has done this in the past, but it's like,
yeah, I know with Sony games that's like Sony is very much like no sex scenes in any of our games. Well, except for Last of Us Part 2, because for some reason I guess Neil Druckmann was able to convince them, hey, we're going to put a sex scene in the game, and they allowed it. And it's literally the most like weirdly timed sex scene to happen ever, because literally the scene that happens, literally the seconds before, it's like Abby and Owen like have sex. Owen's literally like talking like calling out Abby on her shit about like, oh yeah, should I just go and find people who killed my friends and murder their entire families too? Like literally calling Abby out on her shit for wanting revenge. And then they literally like, kind of tussle a little bit, then eventually just like, okay, sex time now.
Yeah.
What a way to start it. What a way to just be like, oh yes, nothing makes me want to engage in sex more than talking about all those people we killed together. Or something like Neil, do you not know how anything works, Neil?
Like
sorry to go back to Neil Druckmann, but it's like, dude, do you not know how sex works? That's the worst way to start off like something like that with like, hey, killing people. Like, what?
I think we learned another one of Hayden's hot buns. Neil Druckmann. Anyway,
Mhm.
that
But yeah,
was
it's like I feel like what's probably gonna happen because it's like I feel like they're probably because I think they let this dude kind of do what he wants, and I don't think they really give him that kind of like stomp down because he did it for both those games, and they didn't get there was no kind of pushback. So I feel like it could be a thing where it's like we're probably gonna get say a Twi'lek character who like and it's like a woman Twi'lek just going about her business, and then it's like okay now here's an option to get her naked and dance in front of Jabba
yeah. I was
or
supposed to say
something like that.
Twilight. Like, I'm sorry. I
Yeah,
heard.
it's those like characters who you can see who are like kind of like all blue or green or
Yeah,
red
I,
skin
I know.
color, and then it's like they have those like
Yeah,
head tentacle things,
yeah.
like kind of
No,
like.
it's the
But
way
yeah,
you.
yeah.
It's the way you said that the race, the alien race. I was like
I've heard
Twilight. I'm
I've
like
heard
wait,
it pronounced
what?
that way. Well, I've
Oh,
heard it pronounced both Twi'leks and the Twi'leks. So I'm not, I wasn't sure which one, so I just went with one.
okay. Because I heard Twilight. I'm like, wait a minute, Twilight. I'm like, what the? Wait a minute, vampires now? I'm like, wait, what?
Oh God, imagine if that's what shows up in that Star Wars game.
Anyway, yeah.
But yeah.
I do hope that if David Cage and if they do continue working with Star Wars Blackout, because I mean it had a good teaser trailer, but
Mhm.
teaser trailers could set the game so well. It's like another great example of this. Before we stop and the episode, another great example of this is Cyberpunk 2077. They had
Mhm.
so many good examples of what this game could be, and then they kind of like just really just shot like really just shot themselves in the foot in terms of just like development, and
Mhm.
which just makes me wonder is like will these companies like will these video game companies now be more mindful of the products that they are releasing in the future, because a lot of these games now are coming with a lot of problems, and
Mhm.
both workplace wise but also just game wise, where it looks like they're not uh like a lot of people are just not happy. So yeah.
Mhm. Uh, yeah, like if I had to make a prediction, I don't think they're going to really, um, I don't think they're really going to put their foot down. I don't think much change is really going to happen, at least not for a while anyway.
Yeah.
That'd be my guess as to like how that could play out, pretty much.
Yeah, and meanwhile, WB Games is just like, hey, you want to? And meanwhile, like literally, WB Games is just like, hey, do you want to see a game where you could play as Steven Universe against a Super Saiyan Shaggy or something like
Oh no,
that?
no, Ultra Instinct Shaggy.
Oh, sorry, Ultra Instinct Shaggy, which I found,
Like this isn't even like 2% of my power, Scoob.
which finding out how he became that is just so like Shaggy too, is because apparently he just randomly eats a gem that he didn't realize was a gem, and
Mhm.
that's how he gets his powers.
Yeah.
Like that's just Shaggy in a nutshell. He's just so hungry that he just
Mhm.
randomly eats something and it becomes power. But
Like Zoink Scoob. I think I ate like a motor engine in that last sandwich,
all right,
and now I got the power of a car. I'm in the Fast and Furious now, Scoob. I'm fast, but I'm not furious.
sweet Shaggy.
Ruh-roh.
All right, but that's a good way to end the episode. Yeah, I mean, I do hope that some of these video game publishers do get like their a more better suited thing, but sometimes, like you said, there's probably got to be like a lot of people. I mean, a lot of these video game companies, like they're probably just gonna be like, just make whatever you want to make, just don't make it as depressing or after a while, we'll probably gotta put our foot down. So yeah,
Yeah, because they'll be like, they're thinking they're gonna still buy the games regardless.
yeah, especially if they have like some major actor, you know,
Hmm.
coming back, especially with Star Wars, because Star Wars has a lot of great actors coming to voice
Hmm.
characters and stuff like that too. And
Oh yeah.
the same thing with PlayStation, um, Xbox. Like you can make a horrible game, but if you have like say like an Idris Elba or freaking Brad Pitt to voice your game, and the game could be like a 5 out of 10 or something like that. People are like,
Hmm.
you know what? I'll buy this one for Brad Pitt or Idris Elba, and then
Yeah.
So yeah. All right. So yeah, that was this week's episode of Downstage with Bryan Hayden. Like I said, it was a pretty blasé week, but there were a couple of interesting tidbits to talk about in terms of things. But Hayden had his time to shine with video game stuff, and again, I'm not really a video game person, but Hayden is the one who's a gamer. So.
Okay, we'll go.
All right. Anyway, just please be safe, be well, and take care, everyone.